Welcome to part 3 of our Parts of Speech series. In this episode today, we're going to be talking about the role of the pronoun as a part of speech in American English. In this episode of the pronoun, we'll be looking at definitions and examples, looking at the difference between possessive and reflexive pronouns, and some of the common rules and mistakes that are often involved in pronouns in English. Now, out of the 8 parts of speech, the pronoun is kind of the substitute teacher of the language. The pronoun's job is to refer back to or take the place of the noun. Pronoun then is always going to be referring to a very specific noun in our sentence. If you can imagine for a moment what our language might sound like if we didn't use pronouns. Take the following sentence. Angie got a new red car. Angie loves Angie's new red car. Angie drives Angie's new red car everywhere, and Angie is always careful to park Angie's new red car in Angie's own parking space. Okay, kind of bulky and all of that unnecessary repetition. Now see how it works with the pronouns, replacing some of those nouns. Angie got a new red car. She loves it. She drives it everywhere, and she's careful to park her car in her own parking space. Now, pronouns can be used to just stand in for a noun for clarity and for shortening the language a little bit, but they can also be used to show possession, to show that something belongs to someone else. When you use a possessive pronoun alone, you get words like mine, yours, his, hers, ours, theirs, and whose, and you'll see that these also will change according to gender, like his and versus hers, and according to number, as singular and plural. When you're using them to just modify a noun, you'll notice pronouns like my, your, his, her, its, ours, their, and whose. For example, that dinosaur is hers. In this case, hers is just standing alone here to take the place of the name of the person to whom the dinosaur belongs, or that is her dinosaur, with her here being used to say which dinosaur it is. Notice that none of the possessive pronouns use an apostrophe. Normally in English, we form the possessive by adding an apostrophe s, but when you're talking about possessive pronouns, the apostrophe gets dropped completely. And we'll discuss this a little bit more detail in some of the upcoming slides. Reflexive pronouns are used when we want to refer back to the subject of a sentence or clause, or sometimes they are used for emphasis or for clarity. The singular forms will always end with self, as in myself, yourself, himself, herself, and itself, and the plural form always ends in selves, S-E-L-V-E-S. You'll notice that with ourselves, themselves, yourselves, as in why do you blame yourself, referring back to you, or we wanted to look at ourselves in the mirror as that sort of reflection. Now, there are some specific rules that govern pronoun use in a sentence. You can't just throw them in there and expect that other people are going to be able to understand your sentence. So in American English, the rules are that pronouns must match their antecedent, that's the noun that they're replacing, in 2 ways, in both gender and in number. And gender simply refers to masculine or feminine, and you would use things like he and him to refer to a masculine noun, like father or Mr. Grundon. And you use she and her if you're referring to a feminine noun, like daughter or Mrs. Brown. We do have a few gender-neutral pronouns in English, like it, but not as many as you might, not like you'd see in some of the other foreign languages as well. And in number, we talk about a singular noun is going to take a singular pronoun. So she is driving her tractor, but they are painting their house. So when you choose a pronoun, you have to look at the word that it's replacing and then decide, is this a masculine or feminine word, and choose the right pronoun, and is this a plural or singular word, and then choose the right pronoun as well. Now remember, we talked about gerunds back with nouns. Now a gerund is a form of a verb that ends in ing, but it's doing the job of a noun in a sentence. It's acting as a person, place, thing, or idea. When you have a gerund, you use a possessive pronoun with it. So the idea of thank you for welcoming our guest, the act of welcoming is a gerund, and then you add the possessive pronoun. So thank you for your act of welcoming our guest. I apologize to my family for your dancing on my grandfather's toes. That's the idea again that this act of dancing on the grandfather's toes belonged to you. The parents objected to my taking the car before I had my night license. Again, the action here, my taking the car, becomes a noun. It's an activity that happened, and you need to use the possessive pronoun my before it. Or they applauded my singing of the national anthem. And in this case, singing is the gerund form. It's the ing form of the verb, and it's acting as an activity that you did, and you need to add a plural or add a possessive pronoun to that in order to modify it. So they applauded my singing of the national anthem, not just they applauded singing of the national anthem. Now, pronouns can actually cause a lot of trouble for writers, and believe me, the makers of standardized tests love to throw these kinds of mistakes on. So pay some attention to some of these rules and some of these common mistakes, and I think you'll find that you do much better when you're looking at answering those kinds of test questions or having the usage correct in your own writing. So many pronouns will take a singular verb even though the pronoun seems to refer to a group. Let's remember that idea of a collective noun. So this includes pronouns like everyone, anyone, somebody, each, either, etc. Now, even though we know that the word everyone is going to refer to more than one person, the fact that it has that word one in it means that when you go to use it in a sentence, you choose a singular verb to go with it. Every single one person is going to the state fair, for example. Now, English does not have what we call a gender-neutral singular possessive pronoun for people. So in English, we tend to use the singular masculine pronoun. So we say each student should bring his book to class, her book to class, their book to class. Always a little bit of a dilemma. But here's the rule. Student is singular. Each one person is singular. But in English, since we do not have a gender-neutral singular, we just revert to the singular masculine. So each student should bring his book to class. Every single one in the room remembered his homework. The other thing you can do is just avoid this construction completely. You can just rewrite your sentences so that they're plural. All students should bring their books to class, or you could use both. Each student should bring his or her book to class. The problem with things like his or her is it gets kind of bulky in a sentence. And if you do any writing for publications, they're going to ask you to follow the AP style, which is again to either make it plural to begin with or to just use the masculine singular in order to make your sentence come out correct. Because again, this pronoun is going to take a singular verb. Some more pronoun problems that often trip people up is the classic distinction between who and whom. In this case, who refers to a subject, what we call the subjective case, and you use whom when you're referring to an objective case. So for example, who threw that water balloon, you're looking at who here is the subject of the sentence, who actually performed the action. But in the next one, with whom were you making water balloons today? You is the subject of the sentence. You making water balloons is the actual action. And with whom becomes the object of the preposition. And so you need the whom form of it. Another problem with pronouns becomes, again, this idea of collective nouns. Remember that in American English, a collective noun is treated as a singular. So you would say the band played its big hit song, not the band played their big hit song. And one more time, you'll notice that possessive pronouns do not use the apostrophes. Another problem that pronouns can present for writers is the idea of vague pronoun referencing. And this is what happens when the pronoun becomes so separated from its antecedent, that is the word that it's replacing, or there's multiple antecedents that are present, and you start to lose track of which pronoun goes with which original verb. So let's take a look at an example of this sentence. Oliver and Sam asked Vanessa to go to the dance and to the party afterwards. She didn't want to go with him, so she called him and said she would go to it alone but see him there after it was over. See the problem with this sentence? You don't really know what Vanessa's intentions are here. Did Vanessa call Oliver or did Vanessa call Sam? Him here, we don't know which one it refers to. Is this a different him? Did she didn't want to go with Oliver, so she called Sam, or she didn't want to go with Oliver, so she called Oliver to give him the bad news? And we said she would go to it alone. Does that mean to the dance or to the party? And would see him there afterwards? Does that mean she doesn't want to go with Oliver, but she'll see him there after? See, it's just a total soap opera without your pronouns in the right place. You just have no idea exactly what's happening in the sentence. So you want to be careful when you're using pronouns, and they are very useful, that you always keep it clear exactly what that pronoun is referencing in your sentence. Pronouns are connected to some of the most often made mistakes in American English. When you look at words that are commonly confused, there, and there rank right up there. So when you look at a word like there, that's the H-E-R-E, that is a pronoun meaning a place. Like I'm going to go to school, I'm going to go there. And one of the ways you can remember it is it has the same spelling as here. You can say here or there, only it has the TH in front of it. T-H-E-I-R is the possessive pronoun when you want to say something belongs to someone. Please give them back their dinosaur. And then there becomes the contraction of the pronoun they plus the verb they are. And they are going to be mad if you don't give them back their dinosaur. So again, notice that the possessive format does not use the apostrophe. Same is true of the words its and its, I-T-S and then I-T apostrophe S. Now again, normally in English, in order to form a possessive, we add an apostrophe S to the noun. But when we're looking at the version of it, when you want to have the possessive, we just use the ITS without the apostrophe. And the apostrophe is reserved for when we're using it plus the verb is in the contraction form. And one of the ways to test this is to just try adding it is into your sentence. You say, it is a nice day, it's a nice day, that makes sense, but the dinosaur was eating its dinner. The dinosaur was eating it is dinner, that doesn't make sense. In that case, you need the possessive form to show that the dinner belongs to your dinosaur. So ready for some review? Follow the link here back to a YouTube video for Grammar Rock explaining some of the nuances of pronouns in a song that will definitely stick in your head and help you remember the concept of the pronoun as taking the place of a noun in a sentence.